The Laughing Negotiators. The observation deck of the Krithan orbital fortress hung above Earth like a sword waiting to fall. War Marshal Thane stood with his 4 arms crossed behind his crystalline armor, watching the blue and green planet rotate below. His species had conquered civilizations for 2,000 years. The Krithans were masters of war, standing nearly 4 meters tall with exoskeletons that could withstand plasma fire. Their red compound eyes could see across multiple spectrums, and their minds processed tactical information faster than most species' computers. Today should have been simple. Another primitive world. Another easy conquest. Another species added to the sovereignty's vast collection of servant races. But something felt wrong. The 3 humans who materialized on the transport platform looked absurdly fragile. They wore simple clothing with no visible armor or weapons. The lead human was a man named David Reeves, wearing what appeared to be a formal suit made of fabric. Beside him stood 2 others, a woman named Dr. Lisa Martinez and a man named Colonel James Park. They looked around the massive chamber with expressions that Thane could not quite interpret. Were they terrified? No? Impressed? Perhaps. But there was something else in their eyes. Something that made Thane's tactical instincts whisper warnings. Humans of Earth, Thane began, his voice amplified through the chamber's speakers. I am War Marshal Thane of the Krithan Sovereignty. We have observed your planet for 6 of your months. Your technology is primitive. Your military forces are scattered and weak. Your civilization is divided into competing factions that waste resources on conflicts with each other. David Reeves nodded slowly, as if considering this assessment. That's fair, he said. We do have our problems. Thane continued. The Krithan Sovereignty offers you a place within our empire. You will provide tribute in resources and labor. You will supply soldiers when we require them. Your industries will serve our needs. In exchange, we will not destroy your cities or eliminate your population. This is generous. Most species require demonstration of our power before they understand their position. We are giving you the opportunity to submit peacefully. There was a long moment of silence. Then Dr. Martinez made a sound. It started as a small noise in her throat, then grew into full laughter. She tried to cover her mouth, but her shoulders shook with mirth. Colonel Park pressed his lips together, but his eyes crinkled at the corners. He turned slightly away, as if trying to compose himself. David Reeves smiled. Not a nervous smile. Not a fearful smile. A genuine, amused smile that reached his eyes and made small wrinkles appear at their corners. Thane felt confusion, an emotion he rarely experienced. You find something amusing about your civilization's survival? I'm sorry, War Marshal, David said, still smiling. It's just that we've heard this speech before. Different words, same message. Submit or die. Bow or burn. It's a very old story for humanity. You have encountered other spacefaring empires? Thane asked. This intelligence briefing had failed to mention that possibility. No, David replied. We've encountered ourselves. Throughout our history, there have been dozens of empires that said exactly what you just said. The Assyrians thought they were invincible. The Persians believed their empire would last forever. The Romans conquered most of their known world. The Mongols swept across continents. The Spanish claimed divine right to rule. The British said the sun would never set on their empire. He paused, letting that sink in. They all made the same mistake, War Marshal. They all believed that because they had won in the past, they would win forever. They all thought their power made them inevitable. David's smile faded slightly, replaced by something harder. Every single one of them is gone now. History. Dust. Lessons we teach our children about the dangers of arrogance. Thane's compound eyes shifted color slightly, a sign of irritation in his species. You compare the Krithan sovereignty to your primitive tribal kingdoms. We have conquered 5,000 star systems. We have weapons that can boil oceans. We have soldiers whose armor can withstand temperatures that would vaporize your cities. We have never been defeated in 2,000 years of expansion. That's impressive, Colonel Park said, speaking for the first time. His voice was calm, almost conversational. 2,000 years is a long time. But here's the thing about unbroken winning streaks, War Marshal. They all end eventually. And the longer the streak, the harder the fall. Dr. Martinez had composed herself. She pulled out a small tablet device. War Marshal, we've been watching you too. Did you really think we wouldn't notice your scout ships? We detected your surveillance 17 years ago. Since then, we've been studying everything about your empire. Your fleet compositions. Your supply chains. Your command structures. Your political divisions. Your technology. Thane felt something cold move through him. Impossible. Our stealth technology is centuries beyond your capability. Was, David corrected gently. Was beyond our capability. 17 years is a long time, War Marshal. Long enough to reverse engineer some interesting things from debris your ships left behind. Long enough to develop countermeasures. Long enough to prepare. You are bluffing, Thane said, but uncertainty crept into his voice. Asterisk Lisa held up her tablet. Your flagship, the Eternal Conquest, has a crew of 4,300. Your second largest vessel, the Crimson Dawn, recently had its main reactor replaced after a malfunction in the Theta sector. You have 300 warships in this attack fleet, but 40 of them are operating at reduced capacity due to supply shortages. Your empire is stretched thin, War Marshal. You're conquering faster than you can consolidate. There are 12 subject worlds currently in various states of rebellion that your government is trying to suppress quietly. The chamber fell silent, except for the hum of life support systems. Thane's tactical officers standing at their stations exchanged glances. How did these primitives know classified military information? You have one Earth week, Thane said, his voice hard as diamond. 7 of your days? Use that time to convince your leaders to surrender. If you refuse, we will demonstrate why resistance is futile. We will begin by destroying your orbital installations. Then we will target your military bases. Then your cities, one by one, until you understand that defiance brings only suffering. David Reeves straightened his jacket. War Marshal Thane, I appreciate the warning. Really, I do. It's more courtesy than some empires have shown us throughout our history. But I need to tell you something important. He took a step forward. Humanity isn't going to surrender. We're not going to bow. We're not going to submit to another empire, especially not one that treats sentient beings as property. Then you choose extinction, Thane replied. Maybe, David acknowledged. But here's what you need to understand about humans, War Marshal. We're absolutely terrible at knowing when we're beaten. It's actually one of our worst qualities, and one of our best. Throughout our history, humans have faced impossible odds and decided to fight anyway. Sometimes we lost. Often we lost. But sometimes, just often enough to matter, we won. And we won because we refused to accept that defeat was inevitable. Lisa stepped forward. Also, War Marshal, this conversation is being broadcast live to every device on Earth. 8 billion people are watching right now. They heard you threaten to destroy our cities. They heard you demand we become your servants. She smiled slightly. I don't think they're going to be very cooperative about that. You broadcast this? Thane felt genuine surprise. You let your population hear our ultimatum? Of course, David said. We're a democracy. Well, most of us are. We believe people have the right to know when someone threatens their home. Besides, humans have this quirk in our psychology. When someone from outside threatens us, we stop fighting each other and focus on the external threat. You've actually done us a favor, War Marshal. You've united humanity in a way we haven't been united in generations. Colonel Park spoke again. There's something else you should know. This meeting? The diplomatic protocols? The polite conversation? This is all theater. While we've been talking, every military force on Earth has been mobilizing. Weapon systems you don't know exist are coming online. Defense platforms you never detected are activating. Soldiers are taking positions. Civilians are being evacuated from strategic locations. He looked directly at Thane with eyes that held no fear. We've been ready for this for 17 years, War Marshal. We've been preparing for the day when someone like you would arrive and demand our submission. We hoped it wouldn't happen. We really did. But we prepared anyway, because that's what humans do. We hope for the best and prepare for the worst. David extended his hand toward Thane, a human gesture of greeting or farewell. No hard feelings about any of this, War Marshal. You're doing what your empire trained you to do. But so are we. We're doing what 10,000 years of human history taught us to do. We're defending our home. Thane did not take the offered hand. In Krithan culture, physical contact outside of combat was considered offensive. In 7 days, your civilization will understand the price of pride. We will break your defenses. We will shatter your military. We will show you why the Krithan sovereignty has never failed to conquer a world it desires. We'll see, David said, lowering his hand. One last thing before we go. You might want to check your communication systems. About 6 hours ago, something interesting started happening to your encrypted military channels. Thane felt a cold certainty that something was very wrong. What did you do? Nothing harmful, Lisa said cheerfully. We just wanted to let you know that we've been inside your networks for a while now. Think of it as a demonstration. We uploaded a small program. It should be activating right about now. Across the Krithan flagship, communication panels began displaying messages. Not tactical data, not military orders. Instead, they showed images and text from Earth's cultural archives. Memes, humans called them. Pictures with humorous captions. One showed a small Earth animal called a cat with text that read, "I can have surrender? No thanks." Another showed a human shrugging with the caption, "Tried to intimidate humans." They laughed. Instructions unclear. A third showed a historical image of an ancient human warrior with the text, "This is Sparta." Wait, wrong speech. This is Earth. Same energy. Thane's officers frantically tried to clear the messages, but they kept reappearing. The humans had not just hacked their military networks. They had done so to deliver jokes. "That's our way of saying we see you," David said. "We see your power, your weapons, your ships. And we're still standing here, refusing to kneel. Make of that what you will." The three humans stepped back onto the transport platform. As the being began to energize, David called out one final message. 7 days, War Marshal. Use them wisely. Think about whether this conquest is really worth what it's going to cost you. Because I promise you this, win or lose, fighting humanity is going to be expensive. The humans dissolved into light and were gone. Thane stood alone in the observation deck, staring at the planet below. His tactical mind was already analyzing everything that had happened. The humans had detected Krithan stealth ships years ago. They had infiltrated classified military networks. They had prepared defenses that remained hidden even now. They had united their population instead of fracturing under pressure. And they had laughed. That last detail bothered Thane most of all. In 2,000 years of conquest, no species had ever laughed when threatened with annihilation. Fear, yes. Anger, often. Desperation, always. But laughter? That was new. That was dangerous, because beings who could laugh at their own potential destruction were beings who had already accepted the worst possible outcome. They had made peace with death, which meant they had nothing left to lose. And an enemy with nothing to lose was the most dangerous enemy of all. War Marshal, one of his officers, approached cautiously. "Your orders?" Thane continued staring at Earth. Somewhere down there, 8 billion humans were preparing for war. Somewhere down there, weapons he could not detect were powering up. Somewhere down there, a species that should have been terrified was instead organizing, mobilizing, and apparently still making jokes. "Begin full reconnaissance," Thane ordered. "I want every scanning system we have focused on that planet. Map every installation, every base, every power signature. Find their defenses. Find their weapons. Find everything they're hiding. Yes, War Marshal. And increase security on all our networks. If they infiltrated our communications once, they can do it again. I want countermeasures in place immediately." "Yes, War Marshal." Thane turned away from the observation window. 7 days. In 7 days, the Krithin Armada would descend on Earth with overwhelming force. They would crush whatever defenses these humans had prepared. They would demonstrate the futility of resistance. But a small voice in the back of Thane's mind, the voice that had kept him alive through hundreds of battles, whispered a warning. These humans were not like other species. They prepared differently. They thought differently. They responded to threats in ways that defied logical prediction. And they laughed when they should have. Wept. Thane pushed the uncertainty aside. He was a war marshal of the Krithin sovereignty. He had never lost a battle. He would not start now, certainly not against a species that had barely left its own star system. But as he walked toward the command center to begin preparations, he could not quite shake the memory of David Reeves's smile. It was the smile of someone who knew a secret. The smile of someone holding cards they had not yet revealed. The smile of someone who believed, despite all evidence to the contrary, that they were going to win. 7 days would reveal the truth. 7 days would show whether human confidence was justified, or merely the final delusion of a doomed species. 7 days until the Krithin sovereignty learned what happened when an unstoppable force met an opponent who refused to acknowledge that they should move. The countdown had begun. The storm they didn't see coming. The 7 days passed like a held breath. On Earth, cities that had been bright with lights went dark as populations moved to underground shelters. Military forces took positions around key installations. Scientists made final adjustments to systems that had been built in secret over 17 years. And in homes across the planet, families held each other close, knowing that tomorrow would bring either salvation or destruction. On the 6th day, an elderly man in Tokyo was interviewed by a news crew. He was 98 years old and had lived through wars, natural disasters, and the complete transformation of human civilization. The reporter asked him if he was afraid. "Afraid?" the old man repeated, his weathered face creasing into a smile. "Young lady, I have been afraid many times in my life. Fear did not help then, and it will not help now. These aliens think they can scare us into chains. They think we will trade our freedom for safety." He laughed, a dry sound like wind through autumn leaves. "They do not understand humans at all. We are the species that looked at fire and decided to hold it. We are the species that saw the ocean and built boats to cross it. We are the species that stood at the edge of space and said, 'Let us go there.' Fear is just another obstacle we learned to overcome." The interview spread across Earth's networks. People watched it in bunkers and shelters. Soldiers watched it before taking their posts. And billions of humans found courage in an old man's refusal to be intimidated. On the 7th day, the Krithin Armada arrived. 300 warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system. They moved in perfect formation, a wall of metal and weaponry designed to inspire terror. Each ship was larger than anything humanity had built. Their weapons could level mountains. Their shields could withstand nuclear explosions. They were the product of 2,000 years of military refinement. War Marshal Thane stood on the bridge of the Eternal Conquest, watching Earth grow larger on his tactical displays. Around him, officers monitored systems and awaited orders. The mood was confident. This was what the Krithan sovereignty did. This was what they had always done. Open communications, Thane commanded, all frequencies. His face appeared on every screen, every display, every device on Earth capable of receiving a transmission. Humans of Earth, this is your final opportunity. Surrender now, and your casualties will be minimal. Resist, and we will demonstrate why no species defies the Krithan sovereignty. You have 1 hour to signal your acceptance. In the United Earth, Defense Command Center buried deep beneath Geneva, General Sarah Chun watched the transmission with expressionless eyes. Around her, thousands of personnel monitored displays showing the approaching alien fleet. The room was silent except for the soft hum of computers and the quiet voices of officers coordinating defensive positions. He gave us an hour, someone said. Should we respond? Already done, replied Ambassador David Reeves, who stood beside the general. He held up his communication device. I sent it 3 minutes ago. On the Eternal Conquest, an alert chimed. Thane opened the incoming message, expecting formal surrender terms or perhaps a desperate plea for negotiations. Instead, he saw 3 words. Come get some. Below that was an image of Earth with small text that read, Locally sourced extinction-level events. Free delivery. You're welcome. And below that, impossibly, was another one of those human memes. It showed a small, fluffy Earth animal called a honey badger with text that said, Honey badger don't care. Humanity don't either. Thane felt his compound eyes shift to a deep crimson, a sign of rage in his species. All ships. Attack formation. Target their orbital installations first. Show them what defiance costs. The Krithan fleet surged forward, weapons charging, shields at maximum. They expected to encounter scattered resistance, perhaps a few military satellites or primitive weapon platforms. Asterisk, what they encountered instead was carefully orchestrated chaos. Asterisk. War Marshal. An officer's voice cracked with stress. Detecting massive power signatures across the lunar surface. Detecting energy buildups in orbital space. War Marshal, they have thousands of weapons platforms we never detected. Impossible, Thane growled. Our scans showed only communication satellites and observation equipment. They were disguised, the officer reported. The casings are falling away now. War Marshal, they're targeting us. From Earth's orbit, from the moon, from positions in the asteroid belt, humanity struck. The satellites that had appeared harmless revealed their true nature. Panels opened to expose railgun batteries, missile pods, and laser arrays. On the moon, massive electromagnetic launchers that had been hidden in crater shadows came online, their barrels glowing with power. The first volley caught the Krithan fleet completely unprepared. Thousands of railgun rounds, accelerated to relativistic speeds, tore through space. The Krithan's shields, designed to stop energy weapons and explosive missiles, offered little protection against solid projectiles moving at significant fractions of light speed. 5. Krithan cruisers at the front of the formation simply ceased to exist, torn apart by impacts that released kinetic energy equivalent to nuclear weapons. Debris bloomed in space like deadly flowers. Shields are ineffective against kinetic weapons at these velocities. An officer shouted, We need to fall back and reassess. No, Thane roared. All ships return fire. Destroy those platforms. The Krithan fleet responded with devastating firepower. Energy beams and missiles lanced toward Earth's defenses. Satellites exploded by the dozens, their fragments glittering in the sunlight. But there were thousands of platforms, and they were small, mobile targets. For every one destroyed, 10 more kept firing. The Krithans were trying to swat mosquitoes with hammers, while the mosquitoes carried armor-piercing rounds. From the moon came something even more devastating. The electromagnetic launchers fired, and projectiles the size of small spacecraft accelerated to impossible speeds. These were not simple slugs. These were guided munitions, smart weapons that could adjust their trajectory mid-flight. 8 of them struck 8 different Krithan battleships. The impacts were catastrophic. Hulls designed to withstand plasma fire crumpled like paper. Reactors breached, creating secondary explosions. Entire sections of ships vented into space. We've lost the Crimson Dawn, the inevitable victory, and the eternal wrath. Someone reported, voice shaking. The Conqueror's pride is venting atmosphere across 3 decks. Admiral Vex's ship is not responding to communications. Thane could not believe what he was seeing. His tactical displays showed red markers blooming across his fleet. Ships damaged. Ships destroyed. Ships retreating in disarray. This was not how battles were supposed to proceed. The Krithan sovereignty did not lose. Deploy all fighters, he ordered. Overwhelm their defenses with numbers. From the Krithan carriers, thousands of single-pilot fighters launched. They swarmed toward Earth like angry insects, their numbers darkening space. Earth's fighters rose to meet them. The human craft were smaller than the Krithan fighters, but they moved with unnatural agility. They twisted and turned in ways that should have liquefied their pilots, pulling maneuvers that generated forces no organic being should survive. What the Krithans didn't know was that human pilots were enhanced. Decades of genetic modification, cybernetic augmentation, and biochemical treatments had transformed them into something beyond baseline humanity. They could withstand 20 gravities of force. Their reaction times were measured in milliseconds. Their consciousness interfaced directly with their craft systems. They were human, but they were also weapons, and they were very, very good at their job. The dogfights were brutal and one-sided. Krithan fighters exploded by the hundreds. Human pilots worked in coordinated teams, leading enemies into kill zones where satellites waited. One human pilot, Calcined Phoenix, destroyed 14 enemy craft in 5 minutes. Another, Calcined Shadow, flew through the debris field of a destroyed Krithan cruiser and emerged on the other side with 6 enemy fighters on her tail. She led them directly into a crossfire from 3 orbital platforms. None of the pursuers survived. This is Shadow to all units. Her voice came across human channels, calm despite the chaos. These guys telegraph every move. Watch their wing positions. When they're about to turn, their formations tighten. Use it against them. The massacre continued. Krithan fighter pilots, trained in traditional tactics, could not adapt quickly enough to humanity's unconventional style. They flew in predictable patterns. They relied on superior technology rather than creativity. Against an enemy that valued innovation over tradition, they were simply outmatched. On the eternal conquest, Thane watched his fighter wings being decimated. This could not be happening. This should not be possible. These humans were supposed to be primitive. War Marshal, an officer approached with visible fear. We've lost 60% of our fighter complement. Our capital ships are taking heavy damage. Sir, we need to withdraw and regroup. No, Thane said, but his voice lacked conviction. Deploy the planet crackers. If we cannot conquer them, we will destroy them. 6 massive missiles launched from the remaining Krithan battleships. Each one carried enough destructive power to fracture a planet's crust. triggering volcanic eruptions and earthquakes that would kill billions. They were weapons of last resort, tools of genocide. They accelerated toward Earth, trailing fire in the darkness. In the command center, alarms shrieked. Planet crackers detected. 6 missiles inbound. Impact in 90 seconds. General Chun's expression didn't change. Activate Aegis. Around Earth, a network of satellites that had remained dormant throughout the battle suddenly powered up. They formed a defensive grid, each projecting an energy field. The fields overlapped, creating a shimmering barrier around the planet. It was technology that shouldn't have existed, based on theoretical physics that human scientists had only recently proven. The Aegis shield couldn't stop everything, but it could stop planet crackers. The missiles struck the barrier. Explosions bloomed in orbit, each bright enough to be seen from the ground. The shield flickered, weakened, but held. The destructive energy dissipated harmlessly into space. Shield holding at 38%, an officer reported. It won't survive another volley. It won't need to, General Chun replied. She looked at David Reeves. Ambassador, I believe it's time for Phase 2. David nodded and activated his communication system. His voice was transmitted on all frequencies, including those the Krithen fleet was using. War Marshal Thane, this is Ambassador Reeves. You tried to destroy our planet. You failed. Now we're going to show you what happens when you threaten Earth. He paused. By the way, while you've been focused on us, where do you think the rest of our fleet has been? Thane felt cold realization wash over him. What rest of your fleet? Our intelligence showed you had no deep space capability. Asterisk, your intelligence was wrong, David replied. We've had ships stationed throughout your border territories for 3 years. They've been waiting for this moment. War Marshal, while you've been trying to conquer Earth, we've been liberating your empire. Across Krithen space, simultaneously, chaos erupted on 18 border worlds. Human ships appeared out of faster-than-light travel with perfect coordination. But they didn't immediately attack. Instead, they broadcast messages on every frequency, in every language spoken in the Krithen sovereignty. People of the Krithen Empire, this is humanity. We are not here to conquer you. We are here to offer you freedom. Your government has oppressed you for centuries. They have hidden the truth from you. They have treated you as servants and slaves. We are here to give you a choice. Then the humans did something unprecedented. They released data, thousands of files, millions of documents, evidence of corruption, exploitation, and atrocities committed by the Krithen government. Financial records showing how subject worlds were stripped of resources. Communications between officials discussing subject populations as property. Orders for suppressions and executions. The truth flooded across Krithen. Networks faster than the government could suppress it. On 17 worlds, populations that had lived under Krithen rule for generations saw proof of what they had always suspected. They saw evidence of their exploitation. They saw documentation of crimes committed against their people, and they rose up. Rebellions erupted simultaneously. Krithen garrisons found themselves facing millions of angry citizens who had nothing left to lose. Some Krithen soldiers, horrified by what they learned about their own government, refused to fire on civilians. Others defected entirely. A few tried to maintain order and were overwhelmed. Human forces on the ground didn't fight like conquerors. They fought like liberators. They distributed supplies to hungry populations. They provided medical care to the injured. They helped local resistance movements organize and arm themselves. And through it all, they broadcast a simple message. The Krithen sovereignty told you humans were primitive and weak. But we detected them decades before they found us. We infiltrated their networks. We prepared for their arrival. We defeated their fleet. And now we're here, offering you the same thing we're fighting for: freedom. Back at Earth, Thane's tactical display lit up with emergency signals from across his empire. Worlds in revolt. Garrisons requesting support. Communications disrupted. His empire was collapsing. Full retreat, he said quietly. The words tasted like poison. All ships. Withdraw from Sol System immediately. The surviving Krithan vessels turned and fled. Of the 300 ships that had entered human space with such confidence, only 173 escaped. The rest were destroyed, captured, or too damaged to move dot as the enemy fleet vanished into faster-than-light travel. Every communication channel in Sol System broadcast the same message. It was General Chun's voice, calm and professional. This is General Sarah Chun of the United Earth Defense Force. To any Krithan personnel in escape pods or damaged vessels, we will recover you and treat you according to humanitarian standards. You will not be harmed. You are soldiers who followed orders. We don't blame you for your government's decisions. There was a pause. To the Krithan sovereignty, Earth is not interested in your empire. We're not interested in conquest or domination. But we will not tolerate threats to our freedom or the freedom of others. Every world you've oppressed will help liberate. Every species you've enslaved will offer sanctuary. Your empire was built on fear and force. We're going to show the galaxy there's another way. The message ended with one final line. Humanity doesn't kneel, and neither should anyone else. In the weeks that followed, the galaxy changed. News of the Battle of Sol spread across every star system. The mighty Krithan sovereignty, undefeated for 2,000 years, had been humiliated by a species that had barely achieved SPAC-EFL, IGHT dot. But humanity didn't stop with defense. Human ships continued operations across Krithan space, not conquering but liberating. World after world broke free from the sovereignty. Species that had been subjugated for centuries suddenly found themselves independent. With human support, helping them establish their own governments, the Krithan government tried to maintain control, but the truth was out. Their own populations had seen the evidence of corruption and oppression. Many Krithan citizens, disgusted by what their government had done, supported the rebellions. Some even joined human-led liberation forces. War Marshal Thane, stripped of his rank and facing a military tribunal, was given an unexpected offer. Ambassador David Reeves visited him in his detention cell. Your government is going to execute you as a scapegoat, David said. They need someone to blame for this disaster. But I want to offer you another option. Help us. Share your knowledge of Krithan military operations. Help us peacefully transition your empire into something better. Help us build a galaxy where species cooperate instead of dominate. Thane looked at the human with his compound eyes. Why would you trust me? Because you're a soldier, not a tyrant, David replied. You followed orders. You believed in your mission. But now you've seen the truth. Your empire was built on lies. You can either die defending those lies, or live helping create something better. Thane was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke. What you did at Earth, the preparation, the deception, the tactics, that was brilliant military strategy. I have studied warfare for 300 years, and I have never seen anything like it. Thank you, David said. Though I should mention, we had a lot of help. 17 years is a long time to prepare when you know what's coming. How did you remain so confident? Thane asked. You laughed when I threatened your world. How could you laugh when facing annihilation? David smiled. Because, War Marshal, throughout human history, we've learned one important lesson. The most dangerous moment for a tyrant is when people stop being afraid. Fear is the only thing that keeps empires like yours alive. Once people realize they don't have to be afraid, Once they decide freedom is worth fighting for, empires fall. He stood to leave. Think about my offer. You have time. Your government isn't going to move quickly on your execution. They're too busy dealing with rebellions on 40 worlds. 40? Thane repeated. Last I heard, it was 18. It's spreading, David said. Turns out when you show people they can be free, they tend to want that. Funny how that works. 6 months later, the Krithan sovereignty sued for peace. The empire that had ruled 5,000 star systems for 2 millennia agreed to dissolve. Subject worlds would be granted independence. War criminals would face justice. A new galactic council would be established, one based on cooperation rather than domination. Humanity took no territory. They claimed no tribute. They simply helped guide the transition to a new galaxy where species worked together as equals. The elderly man in Tokyo, who had been interviewed before the battle, was interviewed again. Now he was 99 years old, and he sat in his garden watching news broadcasts showing former Krithan worlds celebrating their freedom. Are you surprised we won? The reporter asked. The old man smiled. No, I lived through enough of human history to know one thing. We're stubborn. We're creative. And we absolutely refuse to give up when someone tells us we can't do something. He chuckled. Those aliens learned what every tyrant in human history eventually learned. You can threaten humans. You can attack humans. You can try to intimidate humans. But you cannot make us kneel. We just don't have it in us. The interview ended with him looking at the camera. To anyone else out there in the galaxy thinking about threatening Earth, let me give you some advice. Don't. We're friendly if you're friendly. But if you come here talking about conquest and submission, well, he smiled. You'll end up like the Krithans. Humiliated, defeated, and wondering how you underestimated us so badly. Any final words? The reporter asked. The old man thought for a moment. Then he laughed, that same dry sound like autumn wind. Yeah, humanity, fuck yeah. The interview went viral across 1,000 worlds. And somewhere in the galaxy, in the halls of power where empires made their plans, leaders watched it and reconsidered their ambitions regarding that blue and green planet Earth had spoken. And the galaxy had listened. Asterisk,